You alright? This is Pause for Thought on Threshold FM, and this week I thought what we could do is we could branch out a little bit in it, and with the films and that, we've introduced a bit of new topics and that, like the devil and that, and rather than stuff that, we've started to linger and meander into things that might not exist. So I thought we could also change the films as well, and not completely, we're going to still stick with films that we might have watched as kids, but rather than just cartoons and kids' films, I thought I'd open it up a little bit more, so to see if we can find different things in there, So this week, we're going to look at a film that made Vince Vaughn a household name. The first film that did sports as a main topic of a film since Basketball to get a sports movie right? A film so quintessentially American, it doesn't even matter that the sport don't exist outside of their country. So this week we're going to join the budget Adam Sandler in the film Dodgeball, and we're going to see what sort of predictive programming and hidden messages are in there. What was in there to warp our supple minds, back in 2004. But first, we'll have a song. This is We Push by RZA and somehow RZA and Bobby Digital. So straight away when the film starts, right, we see loads of people exercising to excess and all, and they're all wearing the same branded clothing, right? It says Globo, but it's all pronounced Globo, I found through the film. Now, could this be a way to try and keep people convinced about the shape of the earth? Just another one of Hollywood's subtle ways of getting the word globe into the common man's vernacular. I've used vernacular an awful lot this week in the daily shows as well, which is weird. The main bloke, right, who's in the clip at this point, then says he's part of the Globo Gym America Corporation. So maybe the filmmakers were trying to tell us it's corporations that own the world, or at least that it's corporations that want us to believe that the earth is a ball. You've got to remember and all that gyms at this time in the early 2000s weren't as popular. They weren't all over the place like they are today. The only gym that I knew of back then was this old church that had been kitted out as a gym instead, bought and changed from a church to a gym. On the outside, still looked like a church. On the inside, gym, right? Very misleading. A lot of the old women on my estate actually ended up pretty strong. And addicted to metabolic steroids. Apparently there's some weird crossover between cataracts, communion wafers, and injecting metabolic steroids into your arms and legs and wherever else they can find a vein, because with them being old. But that apart from those, it was actually quite full of quite intimidating people. They were probably lovely, but they were quite intimidating looking, innit? There wasn't these franchise gyms knocking about all over the place like there is today. Maybe this was a way to normalise gyms to the general public. To try and introduce that idea of you should go to the gym. You should know what you should do. You should subscribe to a gym membership and then never go. Give us money every month, and we know you're not going to turn up because we know you're all lazy as fuck and fat, and you don't want to actually do it. You just want to be seen to have a gym card in your wallet and maybe get some of the discounts from the other businesses that we own because you've joined this gym. It gets you a 10% discount in, I don't know, Macro or something. I don't know what would combine with a gym, but I imagine bulk buying probably does, getting that protein in and that. Now the film at this point seems to be set in 1993 and all, so it's making you think that you're somehow 11 years late to joining the gym, like the gym's been knocking about as a big thing since the early 90s. The main character in this bit is also called White Goodman as well, so that could be a subtle race thing. Maybe there's going to be a whole race thing going through the film. Then there's a lot of talk about changing yourself and asking the viewer if they're tired of being the quote-unquote same old you, which does tie in with my ideas about how these films are used in some way or other by ethereal entities to be able to move about from body to body and then become accustomed to that body they're using. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about it being, to convince us the earth is round, though. There's a bit where he says, I'm here to tell you, you don't have to be stuck, end quote. and there's a globe in the background right behind him, spinning round, and it looks like there's a prison cell built around the earth made from iron bars. But that could just be how the globalists convince us that there's only 7 continents. If you look at it as like a visual metaphor, that's the 7 continents are there, but then there's bars all around them to show you that the earth is a prison, maybe to do with Xenu, maybe, Scientology and that, but more than likely, just that it's all a lie, that there's actually more than 7 continents and more than, 300 and something countries. There's more. And this big open bit here of this globe here, where the bars bend, there's stuff going on there, but we're not going to show that to you because you're behind the bars. We're on the other side of the bars. We're the ones doing the finger puppets for Plato's cave. You're just in Plato's cave. But not us, listener. We're at the doorway to the cave. Or whatever the doorway to a cave is called. The opening. We're at the opening to the cave. We're at the waterfall, having reality blurred and the cave blurred because the waterfall's stinging our eyes because we're standing in the water flow, and the occasional odd little loose stone comes and pelts us on the back of the head, they're distracting us from what it was we were about to do or about to think about, and then we look back at the shadows and we can't quite make them out anymore, and we look out to reality and we can't make out what's going on out there anymore. But anyway, in Dodgeball, that guy who was talking, White Goodman, that's just an advert on this guy's TV, and he's asleep, this guy. So whilst the guy on telly is talking about getting cosmetic surgery, so it might be a way to try and show us and teach us about subliminal messaging, the character's asleep to the messages he's hearing, yet he's still hearing them and taking them on board. So that, to me, would make sense as to why there's been so much interest in cosmetic surgery as well over the past 20 or so years. The reason why women want to make themselves look like monsters. Maybe it's because a lot of them are asleep, in the sense that they're not awake and aware of what's going on around them. And he's speaking in his sleep as well, this character, lying on the couch going, "Oh, that feels good," to insinuate that the information from the TV entering his mind is good, and that you, the viewer, probably shouldn't worry about it. What we then see is Vince Vaughn, that's the guy that was on the couch, he's actually having a small dog try to fillet him. So could this have been put in to ready us, prepare us, for all of the dog maulings in the UK in recent years, like in houses and gardens and caravan parks and that, and parks. Because growing up, we keep seeing scenes like this, of dogs doing stuff to people's genitals. Like there's that one that it was like a kid's film where this guy's balls get bitten off and they're replaced with metal testicles, and as he's walking down the gangway of the prison, someone from the prison cell shouts, "It's the music, man!" And then when we're older, they start showing us kids being killed by the family dog on telly all the time on the news, and we just believe it because we've seen it on TV over the years, meaning that the big they can make laws in order to take our dogs away from us so that they can then raid our homes in the distant future without having to train their soldiers how to deal with dogs. And that means they can save money as well in medical resources. That means they don't have to pay to fix dog bites caused by, government workers raiding people's homes in order to force you into having, some form of smart meter or something. Why do you even need to send people to install a smart meter anyway? Whenever I've seen one, it's just plugged into the wall, into the mains, innit? Using more electricity, surprise, surprise, lighting up the room, even if it's only a couple pennies extra a day. It's quite clever, really, innit? There's got to be something more sinister about smart meters, but maybe that could be a nice little Patreon daily show episode that you can hear on my Patreon, which is www.patreon.com/worldaroundyou. There'll be a link to it in this if you're listening to this and you want to hear this. As of recording this, I've recorded 51 or 52 of them. So there's a lot to go at. And there's also a bonus episode as well where I do all of my own notes on Chicken Run without the lads from Cack Talk, because there was a lot of points I didn't get to make, and a lot of points that they made that I didn't even spot. So if you want to compare the 2 episodes, you'll have to join the Patreon. Vince Vaughn, then he wakes up and he starts drinking some milkshake from the bottle straight away, whilst listening to loads of messages on his answer machine about being in debt, which could be a couple of things. Maybe he's trying to ready people for upcoming financial problems like the 2008 global financial crisis. That happened, a bit of predictive programming there. We've already had the word global thrown around like uncooked rice at a petting zoo and all, so it can't be too much of a stretch to believe it was a subtle hint. That, coupled with the clock displaying 5 to 12, could be an indicator that it's just around the corner as well. Less than 5 years away, maybe it was at 4 minutes to 12, and 12 being doomsday, being the global financial crisis, what they were working towards, because 9/11 was done, that was out the way, no references to that in this film, no references to that at all, but references to the global financial crisis. Actually, really, the whole film is about Globo's financial crisis, really, and how they want to make more money and they need to buy this other place to make more money. But I don't want to ruin the film for you in case you've not seen it. I don't want to ruin the story and that. I just want to tell you the hidden messages that were in there. Then we see that Vince has his own gym, and it's across the road from that Globo gym that he'd seen on the telly. Again, trying to get you ready for seeing gyms everywhere. Just like how the TV show Friends was used to make people think meeting up to drink coffee and cafe was normal, rather than going to the pub and that, how it was used to destabilise wheat farmers and barley farmers, and instead to try and put money in the pockets of South Americans who grow coffee beans and things like that. That's probably who was behind Friends, possibly those in Starbucks, who they may even all be the same people. In a way, it would kind of make sense if you think about it. The drug cartels of the South America would probably love a way to launder money and move money around, and to be able to have an excuse to be moving vans and trucks load of product around. So they put Starbucks everywhere, which gives them an infrastructure so that they can move things around. But this isn't about that. We get what I think is a load of foreshadowing then at this point. It doesn't really set much up, but it might help you make sense of what I'm going to talk about later. It's all different bits for various characters. But there's this weird guy who's a little bit overbearing, who claims that he went to college, which is the equivalent of university in America. It's the same thing, they just call it something different. So I was wondering, could that maybe be a way that the Americans in Hollywood weaponise the education system and make young people think they shouldn't go into further or higher education because it's going to make them a weirdo and an outcast? Because this guy's first point is that he went to college, he was a university student, and he started buying the obscure sports magazine there, which is the foreshadowing I mentioned, part of it anyway. But that's a big thing in films in America at the time, trying to convince people that don't go to uni, you'll end up like these people. Like that one with Ryan Reynolds in, where he's like a 30-year-old bloke and he's been staying there and living there like a king, and I can't remember what it's called, but they toss off a dog into some donuts and that. That doesn't make you want to go to university. Anyway, let's have a song. This is Waterboys by Earth Gang, J. Cole and J.I.D. There's a big selection of characters so far as well. We've now got a mentally ill man that thinks he's a pirate and might be blind, who attacks people with his knife, so this might be pushing it, but he may be a way to show different levels of street crimes and introduce them to the public. There's benefit cheats, because he believes he's a pirate, and I think he's blind, but he managed to dress himself like a pirate, and later on, surprise, surprise, he plays a bit of dodgeball, so probably not blind. I wouldn't have thought he'd be blind anyway. So, how's he managed to dress himself exactly like a pirate if he is blind? But I might have misinterpreted that he might not be blind. Because he's like, who goes there? Who goes there? And he's looking the guy dead in the face, and it's supposed to be someone that he really knows. So he must be blind, or just mental. And then there's also using a knife to get what you want. And then we find out that he doesn't pay for the services he owes, which is kind of piracy. But then there's the whole thing of piracy, which was a massive crime back then. People making DVDs in the nan's bedroom and then selling them down the local park to other people. So there's a lot of things being introduced just from that character to the public to try and encourage them to do some crimes, low-level crimes, probably in the hopes that they can build up and then start working in the prison system, start making number plates and wicker baskets and that for the corporations like the real world Globo, that needs towels made and flannels made in order to put into the gyms that they own. Then we get a little bit of something that's made to prepare all of our little SJWs, the social justice warriors, right? There's a lot of that in this, an awful lot of that in this. This might be the whole point of the film. There's this blonde woman. I can't remember her name at this point. I have got it noted down further in my notes, but I don't think we get introduced by her name here. And Vinny compliments her about her eyes and asks her what she does for a living, and she says she works as a lawyer, but she mostly deals with sexual harassment cases. Then Vince looks a bit uncomfortable, he's like, oh, fucking hell. So maybe the character was thinking, well, I was going to fucking rape you, but you fucking... That's off the table now, innit? I don't know what we're supposed to take from that. But this, coupled with a little flashback a little while ago, where a fat girl is used to punish a lad. This isn't my flashback. This is a flashback in the film from when we was having the character building and the foreshadowing. There's a fat girl that gets used to punish this lad who was trying to become a cheerleader so that he can seem cool. And it seems the perfect way to be able to rile up all the fat girls that are going to be logging into their new Twitter accounts in a couple years' time when that finally comes around. Then, gives them a bit of something to whinge about when it first starts. Then, there's a bit where we learn that the corporation across the street owned by Ben Stiller's character tells Vince that he's bought the debt for their gym, for the average Joe's gym, for Vince's gym. So they're going to own the gym in a month's time. Vince's gym, and that looks old, dilapidated, whereas Ben's looks quite fancy, innit? Quite sparkly and new, even though it's not changed since the early 90s, according to this. So this could be a way to try and show people watching that gentrification is coming, that plainness that comes with gentrification, where it looks fancy and that on the surface, but that's all there is. There's no culture, there's no nothing, it's just make it look shiny and new. And we'll keep it looking shiny and new for the next 30 years, even though it's not going to have changed since the 90s. And the gentrification thing also gets shown by this weird food that Ben offers Vince, like kumquats, which to me seems like a very gentrify-y sort of food. I don't think I've ever ate a kumquat. I think if you put them down on a table and said, this is a kumquat, this is this is star fruit, this is dragon fruit. I probably wouldn't know what a passion fruit looked like either. And this is an apricot. I'd probably be able to guess star fruit because I'm not an idiot. I would hope that it's in the shape of a star in one way or another. But I wouldn't have a clue with separating out the others, really. I don't. Maybe if I cut them open and smelt them and tasted them, maybe. I think I've tasted passion fruit in Starburst, but maybe smelt it in shampoos. Probably smelt. I think I've tasted apricot as well, because you use apricot jam to put marzipan on cakes, don't you? On Christmas cakes, and that you use it to stick it down like an edible glue. But other than that, I wouldn't have a clue. I don't think I could point out a kumquat. So it does seem very gentrify to me. Then Stiller starts going on about how he's trying to mould society. And this seems to be getting people ready for the corporation wars. For the times of Demolition Man, where everything is made clean and effective. He goes on to say about how he earned his money from a large inheritance from his dad, which seems to be the story for people like Elon Musk and other multimillionaires and billionaires. People that are now looked down on by the general public, whereas years ago, they were idolised, innit? But these films like this started to make us look down on people that inherited the wealth. The people that do lead society in the world because they got the money to. Someone somewhere is funding these films to make us hate them. Ben Stiller then starts referring to Vince's customers as a mongrel race. And there in the film, this film, is our first little bit of... a little bit of, what would you call it? You would call it, bit of like a drip feeding, I guess. A little bit of drip feeding of the information about there being different races in our world. There's no moon in the shot right now, and there wasn't after it either, so that's weird. Quite a big surprise, to be honest, but the idea of the mongrel race itself implies that there is a pure race, which is a theme that's been in a lot of the films that we've covered along the way. Then there's a bit of stuff about a car wash, but then we're back to Ben Stiller, and there's a cardboard cutout. I mean, we could take the car wash scene that was there. It was the men start a car wash, but across the way there's women doing a car wash and that, and the men aren't making any money about it. So that could be a little way to show, don't start anything new. Don't try a new job. Don't try starting your own business. There'll always be someone better than you. There's always going to be someone doing more than you. There's always going to be someone who's more effective at it than you. It's just a way to put you down and keep you working in a job and signing up to gyms. Anyway, then we get back to Ben Stiller. A little bit in a way, because there's a cardboard cutout of him displaying what is now known as the white power hand sign. What used to be okay for scuba divers, now the internet deems it's the white power hand sign. So again, we're straight back to race. This film seems a lot more aimed at preparing people to be angry on social media than it does about readying people for an alien invasion. But at this point, we are only 16 minutes into the film. And then, just like that, all the characters give up their dreams of raising the $50,000 that they need to be able to save Average Joe's gym, and they start drinking. Which is what most of our parents did when they got confronted by an obstacle in life, I'm sure. And maybe this is why, because of things like this in this film, Then, one of the two blokes that can read, because we'd only shown that two of the blokes in the film can read, in this case, the weirdo that went to university, tells the group that they could play dodgeball to win the money by visiting Vegas, which is showing people that when they're struggling in life, they should turn to drinking alcohol and gamble. It's not very subtle, is it, this film, really? The kids' films are more subtle. This is a bit more overt, trying to get into the teenage minds, all them chemicals rushing around, and, the lads have got a bit of a stonk on over the blondie, and the ladies are going mad for the variety of men that are in the film. So there's something for every sort of woman, I would imagine, and fella, and maybe there's only one woman in it though for the other women, that like women. But I don't know if the women with it do this was aimed at. Maybe it was aimed at teenage boys, but it seems like all the subliminal messaging for the women that would be watching it with their boyfriends and husbands and fiancés and that, the male ones. So I don't know which fiancé is male and which is female. I mean, I can pick them out if they're stood in front of me most of the time, but I don't know the word for it, is what I mean. They'll be zoning out to it, and then all these little messages will just be seeping in. So it would be interesting to see what hidden messages are in Twilight and that for men, because women will be taking it all in, paying attention to it all, whereas men would zone out watching Twilight and think this is shit. So what hidden messages were in there for Twilight? Maybe we'll do Twilight if I can force myself to watch it, but it is a boring film. I actually fell asleep in the cinema watching that one. Anyway, we then see Ben Stiller pretend to be reading the dictionary, but he's already the bad guy. We know he's the bad guy, so that's associating expanding your vocabulary and knowledge with being bad. But in the previous scene, reading an obscure magazine was being associated with the good guys. So you could watch this as an impressionable teenager and come away from it thinking that you shouldn't read books, and maybe that's because you only buy a book once. Whereas a magazine subscription, again, subscription services. And if you're listening to this on Patreon, nice one, thank you. And if you haven't joined Patreon yet, that's patreon.com/worldaroundyou. Follow the film. But it's the magazine subscriptions are monthly. That's a monthly income for the people. More money in that than there is in books. People will only buy that book once. You don't buy more than one dictionary. Maybe you'll buy a dictionary every 15 years. See what new words and what new words are out and available, He keeps saying that he doesn't want to be seen as the boss as well, Don't see me as the boss. I'm white, is what Ben Stiller's character's saying, which we know is his name, but it does still seem a bit racy. Not racy as in he slips a nipple out, although we think he tries to at some point, but racy as in, a bit, maybe on the verge of helter-skeltery, maybe? Is that the right way to go about saying that? Is that okay? Then he starts saying that the bank works for him. But that seems to negate a lot of the stereotypes and the racial stereotypes that we know, unless that I've somehow misread this scene. Now, the lady lawyer from the bank is speaking to Ben Stiller, and he's being very overtly sexual. He's got this like bicycle pump that he can use on his groin, and he balloons that up for her, and then starts thrusting at her, and tells her that she and him should get the shackles out of the back room, and even saying that they should mate. But the lawyer doesn't bring up that she's a sexual harassment specialist with him, which could be trying to show young women that it's okay for a bloke to be pervy towards you if he's rich and influential, but not if he's poor. So that could be actual Hollywood rather than the people that fund Hollywood. That could be actual Hollywood there getting a little message out so that the directors in that can still fondle the younger women. And it seems to have recently flipped on its head over the years as now women have started to report more rich guys for sexual assault for whatever reason, you know. Then there's this black and white film trying to teach them how to play dodgeball, just to give it a bit of perspective and context. And it seems very German at the start, really, really fucking German. Possibly normalising people to the concept of Operation Paperclip by retroactively putting the Germans into America before World War II, rather than only after it finished. Then we see some lead-based paint being used by a child before it gets introduced to dodgeball. Not the paint. They don't paint the dodgeball with lead. The child gets introduced to dodgeball after using lead. But we know that dodgeball's a really violent sport, and that we know lead is something that was used to increase aggression in the American population from lead-based fuels in cars. Led to an increase in aggression in America. We're shown a bunch of stuff then about Chinese opium dens after a tiny little reference to World War II and Germany. So this could be a very, very subtle nod to teach people that wars are only really ever fought over drugs. It literally says that dodgeball is about exclusion. So I think I'm right in saying that this film is ready in SJWs, giving them little crumbs of gingerbread people to nibble on before they eventually blossom into the social media trolls ready to destroy celebrities' lives over the next decade or so. Anyway, let's have a song. This is After Hours by Living Legends. We get the message of, you shouldn't try, like don't even bother, from Vince Vaughn. So far, he's promoted gambling, drinking when you're down, and now he's saying that you shouldn't have any goals either. In a way, they're making Ben Stiller's character now seem a lot more likeable, so maybe this film was made by the globalists in order to make us like him more. But then immediately, we see that Ben Stiller's watching the guys at Joe's gym through hidden cameras in his eyes in that cardboard cutout. This has to be a way to desensitise the public to the idea of the rich listening into private conversations in order to allow the rich to make more money. In the film, he wants to own the gym to build a car park so he can have more people in his gym to make more money. But in the real world, he'd be listening to all these little chats about dodgeball, and then he'd be using targeted adverts on the phones to sell them dodgeballs, shirt printing for team merch, and water bottles and other sports gear and weight training stuff as well, you know. Then the college-educated person gets shown to partake in a little bit of human trafficking, right? It turns out he's bought a mail-order bride, mate. We then get another thing for SJWs, specifically the female social justice warriors. The people in the film go against a group of what I think and thought were brownies, right? That's definitely not a race thing. Before anyone starts, before the SJWs come after me, definitely not a race thing. I don't know what they're called in America. Over here, we call them brownies, and they're it's a group of young girls that dress in like sashes, not just a sash, you know, maybe in like the camps and stuff when if the brownie leaders are anything like scout leaders, maybe they have them wear just a sash, maybe two sashes like Jodie Marsh kind of thing. But we probably shouldn't be trying to visualise brownies dressing like Jodie Marsh did. That seems a bit grubby. But brownies are over there anyway are girls that go to like the female equivalent of scouts, I guess, and they teach them how to knot tie and teach them stuff like Brazilian jiu-jitsu so they can fight rapists, teach them how to bake and sell biscuits and sell sweets, and probably molest them to within an inch of their life. But in this film, they're wearing red berets, so maybe there's some form of a representation of an elite military unit. One of the girls, right, gets hit with a ball and then pretends to be hurt in order for the other girls to be able to take advantage of the situation, which you could argue social justice warriors have led to. that, we'll make an uproar, and then other people can take advantage of this situation. Do you know what I mean? So maybe we can see a little bit more in this. Because they're all wearing red and dressed identical, it could be a little way to symbolise communism, mate, and a way to show us that communists are going to use the emotions of people in order to manipulate them and get what they want, which is to win. Not dodgeball, but to win influence. Seeing as this is a regional qualifier, then if the Brownies, again, not a race thing, if the Brownies win, that means that the communists have got people in positions of power in an area known as a region, and then they can consolidate on that and eventually take over an entire district or state of America. Then there's something about doping as well, and a girl with a moustache and really thick arm hair and built like a brick shithouse gets the team disqualified. Now, I'm not sure what the message is here, but there's been a lot in the news in recent years about similar stories in sports. Even though the lady lawyer from before told the owner of Joe's Gym that she's an expert in sexual harassment, she can't leave the guy alone, mate. This is teaching women how to potentially entrap men, not mates, maybe mates as well, maybe it's a bit of a honeypot kind of situation, but teaching them how to entrap a man into committing sex crimes against them, possibly, There's then another suggestion that the powerful guy that owns Globo is Nazi affiliated, mate. Could this be to tie in with the educational video from earlier on, another way to drip feed Operation Paperclip, or is it a way of teaching SJWs a way to shut people down by simply calling them Nazis, ruining any internet discussion? The little hint at communism earlier now gets solidified by having some weird woman with a very Soviet-sounding name be wearing all red and being on the rich guy's team. So I'm starting to think that the film may be a way to teach the viewer that gentrification and the eradication of culture and tradition that comes with gentrification could be solely a Russian activity in order to dismantle the American way of life. It could also be saying that the rich people are using the Russians, if you like, as their muscle kind of thing in order to be able to enact these things. They can't do these things on their own country because, we can't do that. But you could do it from over there. We'll fund you over there, and then you come over here and do this, and we'll help you with this, and you help us with that. Anyway, in the film, they say that this lady's from Romanopia, right? I can't remember how they pronounced it, but that's what it was. I spelt it down, Romanopia, and that does tie in with the earlier sentiment at the opening scene of the film that was telling us that there are countries and continents that aren't included on normal maps of the world. We then see that all the influential people of the world are under the thumb, or at least in the pocket, of the rich people. The Dodgeball Commissioner, or whatever he was called, owed Ben Stiller a favour, so he was able to bypass tournament's rules. But that means there'll be an extra team in the competition, but I don't think that matters to the film because it seems to be getting less and less about dodgeball and more about communism. This week's episode's brought to you by HelloFresh. Do you feel like you're stuck in a dinner rut? With HelloFresh, you get fresh, pre-measured ingredients with mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. Skip all those trips to the local shop and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun and affordable. You can now enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table in less than half an hour, or if you like me, on a plate on your lap in less than half an hour. With more than 25 recipes to choose from every week, there's something for everyone to have a go at. All recipes are designed and tested by professional chefs and nutritional experts to ensure deliciousness and simplicity. I've had a look at them this week, and I quite like the look of this pulled teriyaki duck with spicy peppered chips, peanuts and pickled radishes, because I could probably never make spicy peppered chips. I probably don't have the things in the cupboard for it. And a pickled radish, mate, never heard of it. There was this sea bream as well, crispy sea bream with lime coriander rice with charred pak choy and sticky Asian style sauce, it's called. I'd never have that sort of stuff in the cupboard, mate, so it'd be nice to be able to just get it in a box, the exact amount you need, because, you might never use it again with anything else. This one looks nice, but when you read it, the picture looks amazing, but when I read what's in it, I'd never make this. Roast potato, bacon and crispy kale salad with honey, almonds and balsamic glaze. I've never had a salad, mate, in my life that looks like what's on this picture. There's no guarantee that yours or mine will look like this. These are obviously done by chefs, I would imagine, but I can't imagine a salad ever being like that. A salad growing up for me was 3 slices of wafer ham out of the packet, handful of lettuce, maybe a couple peppers chopped up and a tomato cut into quarters. But this looks fucking, it's like well nice, mate. You know. So if you want to try it, go to the link in my show notes to get 50% off your first box and then 35% off your next 3 boxes. That's the link in the show notes for 50% off your first box and then 35% off your next 3 boxes. HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit. The Ben Stiller team is called the Purple Cobras, which is another thing for the SJWs to later harp on about, because that's a way to symbolise a penis. An uncircumcised penis at that. So they're telling potential Twitterers that if you have a penis, you can break the rules, which is something that a lot of people on Twitter seem to believe. Could things like this in popular films be the reason that they think that? Is that the next bit of predictive programming in this? Worthy programming all the social justice warriors with this film? There's then a little back and forth where Ben Stiller just repeats what Vince Vaughn says, but in a different tone. So like Vince Vaughn goes, "Hello there," and Ben Stiller goes, "Hello there." Like that, to give you an example. It's not in the film, but that's the example. So I'm thinking this could be a way to show that there's a different group of people that try to blend into society, but don't quite manage it, and they're the ones that are secretly in charge, or at least in a higher social standing than regular humans. Now, then the infamous scene takes part here of, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Right, which is the line that everyone takes away from the film Dodgeball. It's all about communism, mate, innit? But they couldn't throw hammers and sickles at people because that would be too on the nose for the viewers. So they symbolise the hammer and sickle with monkey wrenches and adjustable spanners. Then you get the montage, you know, the normal training montage. So there's not too much to pick up on, really. There's some stuff about women being able to be good at sports without being lesbians, but it's too on the nose to be a hidden message. More like a reminder that straight women could also be good at sports. Then we see White Goodman, aka Ben Stiller, sniffing pizza whilst watching videos on his computer of people eating pizza. Initially, right, I'm thinking this could be a little Pizzagate reference, a really early Pizzagate reference, before Pizzagate was called Pizzagate. A reference to rich people watching child porn and having pizza that they don't eat, because the pizza is the children that they're having sex with, not actual bread with cheese and meat that they eat. And to hammer that point home, there's then what looks like a porn. There's a DVD case with porn on it. It looks like on the table next to the computer. But then I realised something. It's an Apple computer. And I remembered that I read something on the internet that said that the bad guys can't be seen using Apple products on screen. So that's another way to show that this film is trying to make people enjoy the globalist agenda, make people like the globalists, and or the Russians that are buying property in the Western world. I can't decide which one it is. This is then hammered home even further, right? They really drive that fucking tent peg of conspiracy in, because Ben Stiller's found to be messing with the pizza by his assistant, and then Ben acts like he was caught masturbating by his mum, eh? So there's definitely a little bit of a Pizzagate thing going on there, I think. White says that he used the Freedom of Information Act to find Kate, that's the name of the lady lawyer, to find her address, claiming that, quote, the hippies got something right, end quote. Now that shows us that political movements are always used or arranged by the rich people to be able to bring about new laws and powers. I don't know what the message is here, but it did make me laugh, which is rare in a film that you keep stopping every 10 seconds to take notes on, especially whilst watching with such a critical eye. But Ben Stiller tells the lady lawyer that he's got some good news, and that she's been fired after he rang her boss and said that she's been caught stealing and drinking on the job, and then with a big shit-eating grin he looks at her and says, "They bought it! Can you believe that?" like he's just done something innocuous, like, fucking finessing a corner shop owner to give him change for a 20 after only paying him with a fiver. And he says he fired her so that she would date him. So this seems to be showing young girls that they have to do what the rich people want, otherwise rich people are going to ruin their lives. The woman violently assaults the rich guy as well, who then gets angry and clicks his fingers, which just summons a fella on a Vespa. Now, this could be the first time that the film has shown the viewer that they can manifest reality using the vibrations caused by both your emotions and through sound. Like different scientists have suggested over the years, like the people that were associated with the Montauk projects and Michael Tallinger saying that you can use sound to move things. And it's weird because we've gone up an age rating in this film compared to what we normally look at in these. And in the old films that we've watched, the kids' films and that message is in there a lot. Almost like they think the kids' minds are now saturated enough at the age of 12 that they only need to be topped up a little bit with it now because they already know about that. That's already in there. We learn that Kate, the lady lawyer, has an obsession with unicorns, which freaks out Vince Vaughn a little bit. And if you like unicorns, right, you're probably going to like the new unicorn dicks I've got on my website, www.worldaroundyou.com. They're £4 each, and they're all a little bit different to each other in size and width and shape and length and colour. It's a nice little gift idea for you, The next thing we see is this ball being flung through the air, and it smashes through a letter V, right, which could symbolise a few things, innit? Now, I looked into the numerology of it, and V is the number 6, right? You'd think it'd be 5, innit, because of Roman numerals, but obviously numerology must have nothing to do with Roman numerals. So that could be a little bit devilish. But there's also dice next to it, right? And that shows a number 6, and then a 5, and then a 1, all in line, and then the V. So that's 666. But it could just symbolise peace as well, because we've had that hippie reference a couple seconds ago in the last scene, and they spoke about the hippies getting something right, and this shows that, maybe they used the hippies, represented by the V, for peace, like the way you show the palm of your hand rather than the back of your hand, because you don't want to insult the people, you want to offer peace, but that means you're saying fuck the past, I guess, as well. Well, we'll only focus on the future, which that's not a good thing either. But then the ball smashes through this black pyramid at the same time as the word world is used by the person narrating this. So we know this dodgeball now symbolises the ball earth. So there's a fair bit of round earth or globalist agenda in this little special effecty bit of the film. Then it smashes through a large castle like the one from the start of Disney films while shouting the word world again. Maybe somehow trying to show us that the hippies, the devil worshippers, the Masons and Disney are all joined together by their attempts to convince people that the world is a sphere. It then smashes off a robot's face, so maybe they're also working alongside some form of life form that isn't quite human but looks humanish, like in shape, or maybe has a bit of robot in it in order to perpetuate the myth of the round ball earth. Now, what do we know that's like a human in a way but isn't, and has robot parts, machine parts? Fucking greys, mate. And these robots are grey as well, so it's combining Disney, hippies, Satanists, the Masons and grey aliens all together. Now, what combines all those together other than trying to convince us the Earth's a sphere? Most people would probably say reptilians. I don't know, reptilians is a push with hippies, but I imagine, there's probably something there, there's got to be, if you was to take the time and really think about things that you're going to say before you say them. All of this, though, happens whilst an announcer shouts, World War II, as the robot gets smashed. So maybe, right, something happened during World War II which resulted in the world believing the world was a sphere. Maybe the ball's got something to do with the moon, I don't know. Maybe something maybe this is the film's representation of the moon, because it is a ball in the sky that we can see, and so's the moon, and they always try and squeeze the moon into these films. Maybe it's got something to do with the extra dimensional entities, and they appeared, or maybe we all fought them during World War II, and in case people found out about it, the big they started to spread rumours of UFOs and then introduced the moon to us through various children's films so that we could accept the idea of these creatures potentially coming from other planets rather than just appearing out of the ether on our own planet. It's mad how many memes have been taken from this film alone as well, you know. But let's have a song. This is World Champ by Marlon Craft. Next in the film, we see this bit where they get the wrong delivery, which is something that America seems to experience a lot, and even now in England it's started to affect us over here. I see videos all the time on social media about postmen and postwomen that aren't very good at their jobs. Not so much the Royal Mail ones, but the ones that work for the private companies, you know, the delivery drivers and that don't deliver the right stuff to the right houses, or just nick it, or just smash stuff by throwing it over the fence. And we just accept it like it's a hazard of buying stuff from, you know, the one of the hazards associated with ordering stuff out the Cleanies magazine or going on the internet and buying stuff. And maybe that's because of scenes like this. The clothes in their box is a load of S&M gear which they didn't order, which is another thing that now gets protected by social justice warriors under the guise of stopping what's called kink shaming. So what if the SJWs are just the latest hippies to be used to cause societal change by the rich and powerful people of the world, so that they can, you know, as in the big they, can slowly introduce the idea of the virtuous paedophile movement into the mainstream, and eventually convincing the world to relax its paedophilia laws, so that they, the big they, like, you know, Big Fiddle, I don't know, they can fuck kids unquestioned, all under the protection given to them by the social justice warriors who don't want other people hurting other people's feelings about their various sexual appetites, you know, like sploshing, spanking and voyeurism. Just bung it in there with the rest. Again, we have another thing here now about Germans. As the German team enters the arena, the announcer explains that they have their empire here on American soil, which again is maybe the third or fourth nod to Operation Paperclip. But maybe what it's teaching us is the Nazis were in America all along and just used the veil of World War II to pretend to have wiped out the Nazis as we know them. And we've had a few little jokes about women being manly through this film as well. And in this scene, we hear the announcer say that here's the only one on the team without a Y chromosome. And the other one then says, hold the phone, she's got a cannon. Now, could lines like this have led to a more accepting nature in people when considering the trans community? By having a lot of references like the young girl with the moustache and thick arm hair, and a lady with a cannon without a Y chromosome, maybe they've influenced the general public to accept a group of people's existence. So maybe, you know, everything in the film might not be negative. Maybe there's some positives as well. Maybe they're not just trying to trick us into believing the world is a prison, where we're only stuck on 7 continents, one of which is impossible to visit and the other one isn't that pleasant. The not pleasant one, I should probably articulate, is begins with an A, you know, as many of them do, because it's pretty cold there, and the other one's cold and all. The Arctic, before that sounds like a race thing, I'm on about the Arctic. You can't go to Antarctica, and why the fuck would you want to go to the Arctic? Then straight away, we hear the line, he doesn't have any balls, Cotton. Showing that this film is all about helping people break down barriers between gender norms. Then, after that match, they get their uniforms back and they give the S&M equipment back to its rightful owners, showing the stuff about sex is over, and that weird sex stuff has a time and a place, and that it's with Germans. It's also worth showing that the propaganda here to help people believe that America beat Germany in the World Wars seems relevant as well. They've brought that back for this little tiny segment of a scene. Then we get a little bit of about, I guess you'd call it synchronicity, which I don't think we've covered, but it's the idea that everything sort of converges to a point because it needs to, and you start seeing the same things. Like, I see the same numbers on street signs and stuff a lot. Not because I'm going down the same streets, it doesn't seem to matter where I go. I see the same numbers sometimes written on the walls in graffiti and that. Like there's someone going around wherever I'm going beforehand, torturing me. Or that I've got a different personality within me that thinks, I'm going to fucking torture him. When he wakes up in the morning, he's going to walk around and fucking see these numbers everywhere. Maybe I'm just not very well. Who knows? But anyway, this synchronicity in the film, the dweeby guy, right, that wanted to be a cheerleader, it's about him, and the girl that he fancies just happens to be cheerleading, doing some form of competition thing in the same hotel he's staying in Vegas. Now, there's loads of young people that believe things happen for a reason, And, in other things like fate and destiny, and things like this always seem to happen in films. So is this the reason why people believe things happen for a reason? Is that the message and the hidden propaganda, or the little brainwashing thing making people think things happen for a reason, when really everything's just scripted in the real world, and there's these people that we can't see, or creatures that we can't see, orchestrating the world and life, making us go to places where we think it's our own free will, because free will could be the biggest lie going, innit? Next, the next team we see is some hipster-looking old men dressed like woodcutters called the Lumberjacks, and the announcers say that, they must masturbate a lot. Now, could throwaway lines like this be what made people have a natural dislike for hipsters when they came about a few years later, and why a lot of them were instinctively dubbed wankers by people even if they'd never met one? You get another scene again that shows an American side, an American team, defeating a country-based team that they've beaten in a war. The Japanese. More World War II propaganda, more than 60 years after the end of the war. So it feels really weird to me that they felt they needed to include so much propaganda for a war that had been over for 60 years at this point, nearly 60 years at this point, 59 years when the film came out. But let's call it 60 and round it up because, why not? It doesn't matter at the end of the day. Nearly 6 decades has passed since the end of World War II when the film came out. The film coming out in 2004, World War II ended in 1945, right? So could this be a weird way of solidifying the idea that we definitely won, the Americans definitely won, believe this, the Americans won? I don't know, but why keep bringing it up? Then, there's a team of black guys dressed like a boy band that get beat by Vince Vaughn's team, so that then kind of ruins my theory about the teams they're going against, I guess. Like, could it actually be another primer for social justice warriors, and to get them ready for being ready to try and destroy stereotypes and racial stereotypes when they finally get social media? Anyway, let's have a song, possibly the last song of the show. This is Brother Ali, Going Through It. The Ben Stiller character, for some reason, is in Vince Vaughn's bedroom at the hotel, sitting, waiting in the dark, smoking like that fella from X-Files, whilst saying gibberish in various languages before explaining he's opening a business in Mexico, showing that he's a globalist with the power to get behind locked doors despite not being intelligent enough to unlock the door. Because he obviously can't string a sentence together in one language. You then forget that Ben Stiller, I forget as well a lot of the time that Ben Stiller is actually a funny actor, and you do in this film, you do forget that, until you see him say certain things with a big fake moustache. That's just my opinion, that's not like a hidden message in the film. I just, there was a bit in this that did make me laugh, because Ben Stiller does look funny with a big moustache, saying gibberish. It's good, it's a nice bit. We then see Ben saying about how he wants to take over Vince's gym because Vince has the whole, this is a quote now, whole I'm not okay, you're not okay, and that's okay, end quote, thing going on. Because his gym business is built around making people, this is Ben's gym business, the globalist agenda. It seems to be all about making people feel bad, making them feel fat and ugly, so that they buy memberships for his gym and spend more money. So maybe wellness and the mental health stuff over the past few years in the public eye has been someone's way of trying to fight against the Russians that are using American people's emotions against them. But what if they're not the Russians, right? What if it's a way of blaming the Russians for the extra-dimensional entities that feed off of negative emotions? In the film, Ben Stiller's character is able to become more powerful over the years because he's fueled by people's shame and negativity, just like how the Archons or the reptilians or the extra-dimensional entities are said to be powered by humans' negative emotions. As a side note as well, I think it's amazing how a film can feel like Vince Vaughn has just managed to walk onto set randomly by mistake and ended up in most of the scenes of the film without a clue of what's going on. That's probably my review of the film. That it feels like Vince Vaughn's film, but it feels like Vince Vaughn just happens to be in the film and he didn't know the camera was on. Which I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but it's just a weird way he acts in it. It is bizarre. He doesn't say much, doesn't really do much, but somehow he's the main character. We then see how the people that push self-love and care in the real world and better mental well-being just bought out and changed by bribery from the globalists in order to allow the globalists to get more control over our world. In the film, this is shown by Vince Vaughn telling the deranged man that, because after he's been bribed, Vince Vaughn gets bribed 100 grand, and then he tells the deranged man from his team he's not a pirate. And that makes him cry, that makes the pirate man cry a little bit. We then see how the weakest of the group and lowest ranking socially is taken in with the Russian girl from Ben Stiller's team, showing us that only the weak-willed are going to fall for this brand of socialism possibly. Or maybe showing us that socialism can be corrupted by the weak if they manage to break the brainwashing in them, showing these people who have already been brainwashed into socialism, showing them love and affection could bring them out. So we need more weak people because they'll offer more love and affection. And then throw them at the socialists and communists and love them and care for them, and then all of a sudden we break it, because then there's a team of two rather than a team of one country. Do you know what I mean? And it gives you more of that the solo kind of thing. It's just me against the world, or me and her against the world, kind of concept, Now suddenly everyone starts giving the pirates shit in the street, which shows again that reality gets affected by your mood and mind state. The pirate was made to feel down by Vince Vaughn, so the world starts treating him worse to reflect on his emotion. Then we see even more about how we build the world around us. The cheerleader lad finds out that other guy that was trying to shag the girl that he liked from the cheerleaders managed to fall out of the roller coaster, just like his teammate suggested would happen earlier in the film, and brought into the real world just by manifesting his own thoughts. And that means now he gets to go and fondle the cheerleader girl that he bumped into in the hotel hallway. We see that underhanded tactics and shame come into play, which allow the globalists to gain the sceptre of Dodgeball, which obviously symbolises what a king would hold when he rules the country, or maybe what the one king, or whatever the king that rules the whole of Earth is called, when they rule the Earth, the world, their world. So there's a little bit of Hollow Earth in there as well, just at the end, with the sceptre. We then find out that bylaws can be used to overturn the decision of the commissioner as a possible, that's the Dodgeball commissioner, or councillor, whatever he was fucking called. And that's a possible way to show us that there are safety nets put in place to stop the globalists from taking over. But we can only use them if we know the rules, which adds to the theory that we're in some form of unwitting game of life, that the players have to tell us what they're going to do and have to show us the rules, but don't have to directly tell us the rules, which is what a lot of people seem to also believe. So this film's showing that and proving that to us. Then we see that the globalists will fight dirty by breaking the rules, but they're only going to break rules that they know they can get away with, like how rich people speed everywhere because they can just pay the fines, or, to a rich person, parking on double yellow lines just costs £60, but that's fuck all to them if they're rich. We then see that a deep understanding of the rules or the laws can prevent the globalists from achieving what it is they set out to do. So if the message of the film seems to be to learn the legal system, the guy that knows the rules then claims you must stay within the triangle that's here on the ground. And this is the first nod to a triangle that we've had in the film, stay within the triangle. Still no moon, other than that little dodgeball scene smashing through the pyramid and that, which does add to my theory that they put the moon in a lot of kids' films so that the kids believe in the moon, therefore manifesting the moon. Because a lot of people have told me that the reason they put the moon in films is because the moon is something that's recognisable. They write that in comments under the YouTube videos and stuff of these. But if that's the case, then why is the moon only in PG and U-rated films and not in this 12 film? I reckon it's because by this point in their life, kids already believe in the moon by this point, so it's being constantly manifested by the psychic powers of the children. And because, it's a control, isn't it? Because if the moon does move away, right, we're under the fear that it's going to fucking kill us because it's going to drag the seas towards it, which means the seas are going to come on land and kill us all. And also that's going to then make an air pocket at the bottom of the oceans, which will then, as the sea drops back down, either vaporise or just splatter the earth into crumbs because of the pure force that would take. Or if the moon comes closer, it'll fucking kill us all by crushing us and again destroying the earth. So it is weird, isn't it? Like, just look at how many different types of moon there are as well nowadays, and how many kids exist, right? And how many eclipses there's been in your lifetime. We used to get told all the time by people that eclipses were rare occurrences, but now we've got blood moons, worm moons, and all them different types of moons. But after decades of seeing it in cinemas, the moon, suddenly it's doing more stuff than it's ever done before. Vince Vaughn then takes a towel and sees the wheelchair-bound bloke that used to chuck wrenches about in the film trying to spread communism, the disabled man that was trying to spread communism earlier on in the film, who led the training montage. And he uses this like it's the Shroud of Turin, because he sees an epiphany of the wheelchair man, who looks kind of like Jesus with his long hair and that. I know I can't say much about that, but he does. He kind of resembles Jesus. And then it's like he's getting some form of secret message from God from another realm. Possibly the only little bit of religious propaganda that I've noticed in the film, but maybe I've just missed the other bits. Then Vince blindfolds himself with the dirty towel and rubs his fingers together to be able to read the air using vibrations in order to defeat Ben Stiller. That's the third or fourth time that the idea of vibrations has been shown to be usable to affect the world around you. The film ends with Vince winning by gambling, and he earns enough money to destroy the globalists. Then Vince Vaughn finds out the mentally ill man that believes he's a pirate is now feeling an awful lot better, and now that Vince has loads of money, he then starts using his money to become just as evil as Ben Stiller's character, and uses his money to influence the mentally ill man to become unstable again, make him act like a pirate again. So it just shows it's all cyclic, innit? It's a cycle. People then become rich, and then they start using other people and manipulating them for their own weird gains. But that's it, really. That's everything I could find in the film Dodgeball. Fair bit of social justice warrior stuff, and even a few things a little bit here and there about extra-dimensional entities, and a smattering of flat earth and all. So, thanks for listening, and I'll see you in a bit, guys. Don't forget as well, the Patreon, patreon.com/worldaroundyou. There'll be a link in it to this. There's loads of daily updates, which is like 5 to 10 minute shows of me telling you what I've been thinking about. Things about aliens and self-service checkout machines recently. Things like that, there's all sorts on there. Plus there's bonus shows as well. 15-minute bonus shows every couple of weeks, every 2 or 3 weeks. Every now and then I'm going to put a bonus full-length show out on there that'll only be available as an audio thing on there. So, give it a go. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'll fucking see you in a bit.